intended to paint turquoise, and I never did, and I never will. I need to take the tape off. And the angle, yeah, whatever. I gave up. I'm starting to do more lives. I have an intention of doing more lives here on YouTube because I hate editing. Like, I'm so over editing of any kind. Like, I just don't have the time and the energy for it. So, but today I saw this really amazing post on Instagram by this teacher. His name is Lauren Kren, and he teaches divine feminine, divine masculine dynamics. And he's just like, he's such a clear channel, especially for a male-bodied human, because channels and oracles are typically women. They have an easier time accessing divine energies because we have the womb space, which is literally a portal to divinity, which babies come through and are, everybody has experience. Well, straight people, I guess. I don't know. I'm just going to talk about men and women because that's my experience, and it gets too complicated if I'm trying to like pussyfoot around genders and the gay experience. And so I can't speak to the other experiences. So I'm just going to stick with masculine, feminine dynamics. If you do other shit, amazing. I love it. Be authentic as fuck. Like, I want everyone to be as authentic as fuck. But I'm just going to disclaimer. I'm going to talk about men and women and straight people, basically, for now. And we all have an inner masculine, feminine. We all have masculine, feminine dynamics within our relationships. So that's what it is. My hair's a little crazy because I did a cold plunge in the creek behind my house the other day after the eclipse. Was that yesterday? I don't even know what day it is. So yeah, I've got slightly crazy hair and makeup from yesterday. I have not washed my face yet. So Lauren Kren, amazing teacher, highly recommend. If you are interested in understanding proper divine masculine, divine feminine dynamics, and again, energetic, not necessarily like heterosexual relationships, but he is an extremely clear channel, beautiful, like truth talk, and really valuable information because like I had a template of like toxic masculine and toxic feminine. And so I've never really actually fully seen a couple that I've met in real life functioning from their divine masculine and feminine the majority of the time. And I've had this conversation with many friends, and we're like, yeah, no, we don't know anybody. So we need to be taught how the fuck to do this. And it's innate. Like, humans know how to do this, but we've had so much conditioning and mud and shit piled on top of us that we've forgotten completely how to have this dynamic that is innate to our bodies. So Lauren, I love for his input because I'm like, oh yes, like that's the thing about the resonance with truth for me is like when I hear it, I'm like, oh, that like resonates in my body with truth, or like there's a frequency, like a tune. It's like when somebody plays a guitar out of tune versus in tune, like you can feel it in your body and it feels good. You're like, oh yes, thank you for reminding me of these things that I had forgotten. So anyways, I just want to share this post that he posted today. It's called 3 Things That Every Man Needs to Hear in a Relationship. And this isn't just for men and women saying this to men. This is all of us need to hear this for our own inner masculine because we need to heal. We have the opportunity to heal our own inner divine feminine, divine masculine. So I realized like I don't have a partner. I don't have it's complicated, but I don't have my person here right now that I'm engaging in a relationship with. So it's just like that's a whole other story for a book for maybe a couple years, 3 years in the future. Anyways, so I realized like, oh, like I need to say these things to myself, to my own inner masculine, because I'm pretty good with my inner feminine. I spent a good decade because I was not at all like I started off toxic masculine embodiment pretty much. Like I was taught to be a man, to be a boy, to like not show emotion, don't be vulnerable, don't cry. And be very like aggressive in certain ways, like not physically aggressive necessarily, a little bit, but like yeah, just more of the toxic masculine dynamic was how I was raised or how I perceived I was supposed to be. And that's how I operated in the world. And I would actually, like, when I would go out in Los Angeles and like get dressed up and put on makeup, I would wonder, like, are people going to think I'm a trans woman? Like, are people going to think I'm a man? Because I felt so masculine underneath the makeup and like the beautifying. which I don't think anybody ever did, but it's just what I felt like, because I was so out of touch with my feminine, with my inner feminine, because being female in this world was so risky and dangerous. And so like I had this like hard shell of toxic masculinity over my inner femininity. So I've done a shit ton of work unsorting that, undoing that, which part of that was involved living in Italy. And I had a roommate who was French and a roommate who was Greek, and they were like the embodiment of femininity. I can't say that word very well. Femininity. I need to slow down probably. And I had a Portuguese other friend, and she one day she took me aside. She's like, "Do you see those two women?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You need to start copying them. You need to learn how to be a woman from these women." And again, like they didn't grow up in the United States. They were very feminine. And maybe, again, like not that they were in their feminine power, but they embodied the feminine to a higher capacity than I was at the time. So so she's like, walk slower, move like they move, act like they act. Like she like sat me down and gave me a talking to, and I was like, okay, like I don't know how to do this. Like I walk really fast, and I like, yeah. So I started studying. I started studying them, how they moved, how they acted, their energy, which was so different from mine. And and I started learning about what it meant to be feminine, and yeah, it was a fascinating process. So over the years I've studied, and I can hear my banjo is like resonating when I'm talking. It'll like kind of resonate. Oh, I'm knocking shit over. This is my grandfather's banjo on my maternal side. Um, and I did start learning how to do finger picking, but then I realized like the bluegrass version. I have ADD, if you haven't noticed, which I actually just think is like channeling divine energies and um, following the flow of intuition. But I'm going to talk about this right now. It's a little out of tune because my tuner broke, and I need to buy a new tuner that has the frequency capacity, like the ability to tune to the 432 hertz rather than 440, which is the normal tuning. Anyways, that's bad. I was studying bluegrass for a bit, and I also realized that this can be used as a drum, which is fun. Um, I was studying bluegrass, but I realized I like the claw hammer method better than the bluegrass, like that kind of really old timey. But then I was like, I actually don't really love either of these because I just want to play around with it and make my own fucking style. Because all styles that are taught was just somebody made that up and then everybody else copied them. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to learn either style. I just want to like fuck around with this. But I do need to buy a tuner. Um, anyways, where was I? Divine masculine and feminine dynamics. So I'm going to be saying these affirmations to my inner masculine. I invite you, if this feels resonant, to say these to your inner masculine, and I'll just read these to you. You are enough as you are. I love you for who you are deep down and not your achievements. I can see how you are stepping up. I can see how you are facing yourself. I love seeing you do the work. It makes me feel so safe with you. You are my, and this has different verbiage. I won't say to myself that you're my husband or my man, but I mean, if I'm marrying myself, I guess I could. But I'll read verbatim and then you can adjust. You are my man/husband, protector, warrior. I love your masculine traits. You can give a specific example of how you felt protected in a specific situation. Telling these things, okay, so it says, women, telling us these things from your heart makes all the difference for us. We need to hear this. We want to serve you. And when you say this, our fire to serve you burns even stronger. So again, taking this out of the realm and the context of relationship, but turning it back into how I am healing my own wounded inner masculine. Because like I said, I've spent about the last 10, 14, I don't know how many years, 10 years working on the healing the feminine. And now I'm finding, oh, I need to work on the masculine side because I have been living pretty much in the feminine flow of intuition and like no structure and like not really providing for myself financially in the way that I am called to, especially as a single mom with 2 children. So I'm finding that I want to put more focus on healing my inner masculine. And so these feel nourishing for me to tell myself, like, you are enough as you are, which everybody needs that reminder pretty much, I feel like. Um, and like who you are deep down and not just your achievements. And so like taking that pressure off of like, oh, well, you need to achieve and you need to do this stuff and you need to like have 1 million followers and you need to have a book written and published. You need to, da, da, da. It's like, no, like you're enough and I love you for who you are, regardless of what you do. And I can see how you are stepping up, facing yourself, facing your inner shadows, doing the work. And creating safety in our bodies. So most of us live in bodies that are not safe, like for ourselves to inhabit because we grew up with other people who were not safe and in situations that were not safe. And by safe, I mean a place where you can relax. You're not in flight, freeze, fawn, but also just feeling like peace in your body. Like most of us, if we go deep enough, we're not just sitting in a bed of peace and like, openness. We're sitting in a bed of anxiety and tension and fear. So affirming our own work of making ourselves safe spaces for ourselves, I think is really important because all trauma healing is rooted in safety and creating safe spaces for ourselves. And again, like we can't depend on other people to create safety for us, even though that is part of the masculine role. We have to feel safe before we can even feel safe in a container that someone else creates. And how do you feel safe? You show up for yourself. Like you listen to yourself, you hold all pieces of yourself, and you don't reject or deny or fight against any aspects of yourself. And that creates safety. So this is very important work. And again, it's like the foundation of all trauma healing. You are my protector warrior. I love your masculine traits. And so again, like a lot of us, as we become more aware in our world of the toxic masculine running and ruining everything, a lot of us, especially women, have turned against the masculine completely and said, "You are what's wrong with this. Patriarchy is evil. You're the problem." And it's not, the masculine isn't the problem. Toxic masculinity is the problem. Like divine sacred masculinity is not a problem, it's a blessing. Divine sacred femininity is not a problem, it's a blessing. And so just reworking, like whenever we're talking about the issues with the current world and patriarchy, it's not just that, it's toxic masculinity and toxic patriarchy. And so recognizing the masculine as the protector warrior, which like men have not been protecting and warring for truth and beauty and for the women and children. Like that hasn't been going on. They've been doing other shit that's not in alignment with their highest self and divinity and this beautiful world that we can create, that we're creating. So recognizing the higher end of that protector warrior, which is the whole fucking point of like protecting and defending the women and children and nature and earth. And I know like I processed my own sexual assault, which happened back in 2007, which I wasn't conscious. I don't fully remember it, but I knew afterwards by evidence that it had happened. And so I processed it with, interestingly enough, a transgendered person who is a shaman and holds both the masculine and the feminine very strongly. But when I processed my own sexual assault, what came out was this rage at and I won't call them men at the party because they weren't men, they were boys, but boys with good hearts that were not defending the feminine and were numbing themselves to paying attention to what the fuck was going on and to stopping the men who were raping women in that scene. So like what came out of me was like, where the fuck were you? Like, where the fuck were you when I was getting raped and you were, at this party, like dancing or doing drugs? Like, what the fuck? And there's that feminine rage that's rising in a lot of women I know of like, it's almost this rage to the divine masculine of like, where the fuck have you been? And again, like all women right now are pretty much operating from toxic femininity and toxic masculinity also. So we're healing all of that shit. And it's, I could say it's a lot, but healing can occur in an instant. Like healing can be miraculous, and it can occur. It doesn't have to take another 5,000 years for us to heal. Like, it can happen tomorrow. It can happen today. It can happen in a breath. So that is hope inducing for me. Um, and also, like, respecting, I love your masculine traits, and like giving examples of how maybe you appreciate yourself when you did, show up and put out your offering and create a structure that enabled your capacity to channel, to reach more people, or whatever it is, like using our masculine strengths and traits and skills for the greater good. It's good to acknowledge ourselves for the ways that we do that, and then, ramp that up and increase that. Um, so yeah, like expressing these things from our heart to our own heart, I feel like can be super healing. And that's also tied into like reparenting work, where you become your own loving parent that you probably didn't have, at least not all of the time. And so those things that you did not get in your childhood, or that you missed, or that you actually were, traumatized over, you can give that to yourself. Like, you didn't deserve that. You are worthy of love and safety and peace. And, nothing that happened was your fault. And what I'm discovering through my own journey, stepping into like my healing work and healing work, is that all humans, like, we're taught this concept of original sin in Catholicism, which is my past lineage of religion and repression and distortion. We're taught about original sin, and original sin is a lie. What's true is original goodness. Like, all humans are born with a good, pure heart in it, like a good, pure, innocent heart. And good and God are like one letter off. So God is and good are just, it's the same fucking word. Um, and goddess. And, yeah, that's something for another day. The whole separating God into half, and then just completely denying or negating the feminine half of God. It's like, that's kind of insane. Like, why cut yourself off from a full half of God? But all humans are born with good hearts, good God hearts, where the God, it's like the literal portal to the divine, also for like the divine energy to flow through you out into the world, making you a conduit for divinity and love. But so all humans are born with like a good, innocent, pure heart. And then it's this game of divine amnesia. We forget that we are everything, that we're divine, that we're one. And we start to take on trauma and darkness and constriction and restriction, and develop an ego, which is, your ego is like a defensive mechanism, psychically and spiritually and mentally, against the ugliness and the brutality of the world. And like, the brutality and the ugliness are there so that we can see the light. Like, we can't see the light without the darkness. Otherwise it's just all light, which is, that's what God was before, maybe, or maybe God was all darkness. I haven't quite figured out the timeline. But if God is just pure light, blinding, brilliant light, and that's what God was before darkness existed, then you can't see it. And after millennia, like Alan Watts talks about this, like after like billions and an eternity of being all light, like you get kind of bored, and you're like, well, what game could I play? So you take a nap and you fall asleep and you have a dream, and the dream is scary, and then you wake up and you're like, oh yeah, I'm God. Like, this isn't actually scary. So like, we're in that now as humans, this game of divine amnesia. And the darkness actually isn't scary. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's just the game. It's just like when you're playing a video game and there's like creatures attacking you, and you have to like shoot them off with your magical powers. It's just the game. It's the creatures. They're not evil. And there are entities, which I think is part of the game, because I'm now being able to like feel and sense and clear entities, which I never believed in before. I was like, people talk about entities. I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, maybe you're making it up. Maybe it's true, but I never experienced that. But now I am. So as we go through life as a child, and, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about the pain body, or is it him, or is it Eckhart Tolle? Somebody talks about the pain body. And these, it's that distortion of like the darkness that turns into like a fight, that turns into good and evil, and the battles and all this stuff. So yeah. So I'll close up because my daughter just woke up and came into our tiny home. But yeah, I invite you to maybe use these affirmations. If you have a partner, a masculine partner, and you want to say these things to him, that would be wonderful.
I'm just using the bathroom.
Okay. Or if you want to, do some work on yourself, your inner masculine, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever you are, like honoring that divine inner masculine and communicating to them. We'll just read it again for repetition's sake. You are enough as you are. I love you for who you are deep down and not your achievements. I can see how you are stepping up. I can see how you are facing yourself. I love seeing you doing the work. It makes me feel so safe with you. You are my man, husband, protector, warrior. I love your masculine traits. You can give a specific example of how you felt protected in a specific situation. And I know, like, I have a very strong masculine side, and I've always protected myself, aside from that one sexual assault when I chose to imbibe some things, not knowing what they would do. And then I was unconscious for this to occur. But other than that one time, I have always had very protective, strong boundaries. Um, and I've always known too that, like, if anyone ever tried to like come at me, like either I'm gonna kill them or I'm gonna die. Like I'm not gonna go without a fight. So, honoring myself for even that part of like how I have protected myself. And I've been in some like I've traveled alone extensively. I've walked at night through slums in Argentina in very violent places, but I've also always carried my own light with me that I knew that I was safe and protected. And some people will be like, "Oh, you're ignorant or whatever, you're bypassing." But um, I know my own strength, and that strength has kept me protected for, the last 44 years. So I am grateful, or 45 years. I am grateful for that. So yeah, just honoring our own inner masculine and maybe even outer masculine if you feel called, but especially the inner masculine. So, okay, bye. I don't know how to stop this. How do we turn this off?